Hello, and thank you for joining me. Find a comfortable place. Settle in. Dim the nights. Welcome to the hidden truth. Have you ever felt a haunting shiver when you think about the Titanic? I don't just mean the cold of the ice. I mean a different kind of chill. A deeper cold. A melancholy that settles in your bones. I first felt it, I think, as a child, watching the James Cameron film. But back then, it was a story, a grand romantic tragedy. As I grew older, I started to read. And when you really start to read, when you truly begin to dig, you realize that film, that love story, it's just a single small porthole looking out onto an abyss. My name is Anna, and for many years I've been haunted. Not by the ship itself, but by the questions. Why this ship? Why, out of all the thousands of tragedies at sea, does this one name still echo with such power? We all know the official story. The ship was going too fast, it hit an iceberg, there weren't enough lifeboats, a terrible, tragic accident. The end. But that answer, to me, it has always felt too easy, too neat. My journey, my personal investigation into this, it didn't start in a history book. It started where so many of these journeys begin, in the quiet blue light of a computer screen, at 3 o'clock in the morning, when the rest of the world is asleep, and you fall down that strange, dark, digital labyrinth.
My journey began here, 3 a.m., a single flickering cursor on an old, forgotten internet forum, and a question. Are you sure the ship at the bottom of the ocean is really the Titanic? Now, I want to be perfectly clear right at the start. This theory has been thoroughly, scientifically, and completely debunked. But its allure, why it's so compelling, tells us so much about our need for a story.
The story, the Olympic swap, goes like this. 7 months before the Titanic's voyage, its sister ship, the RMS Olympic, collided with a warship, the HMS Hawk. It was badly damaged. The court blamed the Olympic. This was a financial catastrophe for the parent company, IMM, and its owner, JP Morgan. They were uninsured and stuck with a broken ship. The conspiracy, promoted by authors like Robin Gardner, alleges a secret switch. They supposedly took the new Titanic and rebadged it as the Olympic. Then they took the broken Olympic, patched it up, painted Titanic on its bow, and sent it on the maiden voyage, planning to sink it for the insurance money. It explains everything, doesn't it? Why JP Morgan canceled his ticket. Why it sank so fast. When I first read this, my heart was pounding. It was a perfect story. But then, the truth. And here is the first philosophy I learned on this journey. The truth is often far more mundane and far more tragic than any conspiracy. Why does this theory collapse? 1. The physical evidence. This is the killing blow. When Dr. Robert Ballard found the wreck in 1985, and when James Cameron dove to it, they filmed the ship's propellers. Stamped indelibly into the bronze is the yard number, 40 1. Titanic was 401. Olympic was 400. You cannot fake a number forged in steel. 2. The financial motive. The theory hinges on insurance, but the records are clear. Titanic was built for $7.5 million. It was insured for only $5 million. It was underinsured. Sinking it was a massive loss, not a gain. 3. The human element. This would require the silence of thousands of shipyard workers. Not one deathbed confession, not one letter. It's not plausible.
The Olympic swap is a fascinating piece of fiction. It's a testament to our desire for a plot twist. But the facts are clear. The ship at the bottom of the sea is the Titanic. And for me, that single, undeniable number, 401, it forced my investigation to change course. If the ship was the Titanic, then the real mystery wasn't about the ship. It was about the passengers. This theory is perhaps the most speculative of all. It is not supported by mainstream historians, but its coincidence is so chilling, we must explore it to understand the full scope of the Titanic myth. The context is the bitter political fight in the 1910s over creating a U.S. central bank, the Federal Reserve. On one side, J.P. Morgan, a powerful supporter. On the other, some of America's wealthiest industrialists who fiercely opposed it. Now, look at the passenger list. Who canceled at the last minute? J.P. Morgan. Who else canceled? His associates, like Henry Clay Frick. And who was on the ship? 3 of the most powerful opponents of the Fed. 1, John Jacob Astor IV, Benjamin Guggenheim, and Isidor Straus. All 3 men were on the ship. All 3 men died. 1 year later, in 1913, the Federal Reserve Act was passed. The allegation is that Morgan orchestrated the disaster to eliminate his opposition. A chilling thought. But again, we must be rational investigators. What does the evidence say? 1. The cancellations. The historical record is boringly mundane. The New York Times in 1912 reported on Morgan's ill health. Family archives cited by historians confirm Frick's wife had sprained her ankle in Italy. 2. The politics. Were these 3 men the only obstacle? Historians say no. 3. The business logic. We come back to this. Would Morgan really sacrifice his brand new flagship, underinsured vessel in such a public, risky gamble? It defies business logic. The Fed plot is one of history's most staggering coincidences, but a coincidence, no matter how tantalizing, is not proof. It teaches us that we often look for grand, complex conspiracies because we are uncomfortable with the idea of simple, tragic human error. What do you think? Do you think the Federal Reserve theory is a profound coincidence or something more? Share your thoughts on X with the hashtag #HiddenTruthTitanic. But for me, this theory felt too on the surface. My research told me that the real hidden truth of disasters often starts smaller, not with a bang, but with a spark. What if a hidden fire doomed the Titanic before it even sailed? This isn't speculation. This is fact. The RMS Titanic was on fire before it ever left Southampton.
My investigation into this led me to the work of Irish journalist Sinan Maloney. I remember finding his photographic evidence in a quiet corner of a digital library, and it fundamentally changed my perspective. Maloney is not a theorist. He is a meticulous forensic investigator. He uncovered a rare, private album of photos taken just before the ship left the shipyard, and in those photos, he found it. A long, dark, faint streak, a shadow almost 30 feet long on the ship's hull, on the starboard side. It wasn't a shadow. It was a scorch mark. The fire had started deep within coal bunker number 6. This was a spontaneous combustion fire, common at the time, but this one was large. For days, perhaps weeks, it smoldered, with temperatures, according to experts, climbing as high as 1,000 degrees Celsius. The White Star Line knew, and they covered it up. They intentionally parked the ship in Southampton, with the other side facing the dock to hide the mark from the press. Why is this so critical? Because that fire was raging against bulkhead number 5, one of the critical watertight bulkheads. Experts like Maloney argue that intense heat made that steel wall brittle, robbing it of up to 75% of its strength. And then the terrible irony. Where did the iceberg strike? It struck the starboard side and tore open the exact spot right where the fire-damaged, brittle bulkhead stood. This ship was already structurally compromised. This, for me, is one of the most powerful truths. It's a philosophy for life. It is often not the sudden, obvious catastrophe that destroys us. It is the small, smoldering problem that we know about, that we hide, that we ignore, that brings us to our knees. Do you think the fire was the fatal flaw? Let me know on X with #HiddenTruthTitanic. And this fire, this hidden, burning secret, it may be the only thing that explains the next most baffling decision of all. Mystery number 4, the hubris of speed. Hubris, the ancient Greek concept of dangerous overconfidence. It's a lesson I've seen play out in small ways in my own life, but I've never seen it on such a catastrophic, world-changing scale. And it's why the Titanic's speed haunts me. This, for me, is the one that's most baffling. Why? Why did Captain Edward Smith, a 40-year veteran of the sea, have the Titanic racing at near maximum speed through a known ice field in the dark? They were going over 22 knots. They were driving a 46,000-ton skyscraper like a sports car in a minefield. And they knew the ice was there. They had received at least 6 separate wireless warnings that day. The final warning from the SS Californian was so direct. We are stopped and surrounded by ice. The response from Titanic's exhausted wireless operator, Jack Phillips? He was busy sending personal messages for the wealthy. He snapped back, "Shut up! Shut up! I am busy." Why the speed? Based on the 1912 inquiries and survivor testimonies, my research points to 4 possibilities. 1. Publicity. They wanted to arrive in New York early. 2. Pressure. The boss, J. Bruce Ismay, was on board. Survivor Elizabeth Lines testified in the official British inquiry that she overheard Ismay pressuring Captain Smith to maintain speed. 3. Hubris. This, I believe, is the core of it. They simply did not believe the ship could sink.
Captain Smith himself had said, "I cannot imagine any condition which would cause a ship to founder." 4. The fire. And this connects it all. What if they were going so fast to burn off the coal in that burning bunker? What if they weren't racing to New York? What if they were racing against the fire in their own hull? The ship's speed was a fatal decision, born of publicity, pressure, arrogance, and perhaps desperation. The philosophy is the oldest one in the book. The moment you believe you are untouchable is the precise moment you are most vulnerable. And so they raced on, too fast. The iceberg struck, the ship was doomed. But the tragedy, the part that truly fills me with a cold, quiet rage, wasn't just the sinking. It was the ship that was close enough to watch it happen. Mystery number 5. The deadly silence of the SS Californian. There are parts of this story that are sad. There are parts that are mysterious. This part just makes me angry. I remember pacing my room when I first read the official inquiry testimony, just grappling with the moral weight of what happened next. Not far away, perhaps 10, perhaps 19 miles, close enough to see its lights, was the SS Californian, the very ship that had sent the final warning. Its captain, Stanley Lord, had made the correct decision. He stopped his ship for the night, surrounded by ice. His crew, on deck, could see the lights of a large steamer, the Titanic. They saw it stop, and then they saw it begin to fire rockets. White rockets. 8 of them, fired one by one. They woke Captain Lord. "Sir, the ship is firing rockets!" And this is the moment in history that freezes my blood. Captain Lord, from his bunk, asked, "Are they company signals?" His men said, "They were white!" And Stanley Lord went back to sleep. Let me be clear. A rocket at night from a stopped ship means distress. The Californian was there. They saw the signals. They could have saved so many. Instead, their radio operator was asleep. Their captain was asleep. When dawn broke, they heard the news. They steamed over, and all they found was the Carpathia, the true hero of that night, picking up the last of the lifeboats. The Californian's failure to act is one of the greatest what-ifs in history. It is the bystander effect on a grand, tragic scale. Someone else will surely help. But no one did. Captain Lord was disgraced, but he went to his grave swearing that the ship he saw looked odd and small. For decades, this was dismissed as a liar's excuse. But what if? What if in a bizarre twist of physics, he was telling the truth? Was the Californian's inaction simple apathy, or was it a trick of the sky? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Mystery number 6. The super refraction illusion. What if Captain Lord wasn't lying? What if his crew wasn't just incompetent? What if the very sky was playing a trick on them? My investigation took a hard turn into physics, specifically the work of historian Tim Moulton in his book, Titanic, A Very Deceiving Night.
Moulton argues the weather that night was a once-in-a-lifetime atmospheric anomaly. The cold Labrador current meeting the warm Gulf Stream created a thermal inversion. Essentially, it turned the atmosphere into a giant, shimmering lens. It bent light. It created mirages.
Moulton's theory, supported by meteorological records, suggests this mirage did two catastrophic things. One, for the Titanic, it created a false horizon. The lookouts weren't lazy. They were scanning a horizon that wasn't really there. The iceberg was invisible in a pocket of shimmering air until it was too late. When Lord's crew looked at the Titanic, the light was bending. It made the massive liner appear small, distorted, and odd, exactly as they described it. It also made the rockets appear low.
This changes everything. It means the lookouts weren't blind, and the Californians' crew wasn't just incompetent. They were all being deceived by the sky itself. It introduces a new, chilling character, fate. The philosophy here is profound. We are all, in some way, slaves to our perception. We act based on what we believe to be true. But what if the very air around us is lying?
Mystery number 7. The mystery third ship. Imagine, for a moment, you are in that lifeboat. You are freezing. You are in total, terrifying darkness. And then you see it. A light. Another ship. You yell, you row. Salvation is right there. This isn't a what if. This is what many survivors, shivering in the lifeboats, swore they saw. The lights of a third ship. Not the Carpathia, still too far, and not the Californian, which was dark. Officer Boxhall, in a lifeboat, saw it. He tried to row towards it. And then the ship seemed to turn and steam away. It vanished.
Can you imagine that? The hope, and then the crushing, ultimate despair? This was often dismissed as a mirage. See Mystery 6. But there is another, darker theory. The theory of a Norwegian sealing vessel called the Samson. The story goes that the Samson was in the area hunting seals, illegally. They would have seen the rockets. They would have known it was a major disaster. And that would mean Navy ships, an official investigation. And so, fearing discovery, they turned off their lights and fled into the night.
We will never know if the Samson was truly there. Reflections on this mystery. The third ship was either a mirage or it was a ghost of human cowardice. This presents us with a terrible moral choice. The Californian represents the sin of apathy. It's not my problem. The Samson, if real, represents the sin of fear. I must save myself. I truly don't know which is worse. This is all so heavy. So much human error. So much physics. It almost feels unnatural. Which, of course, is what led my research to the next most famous legend of all. Mystery number 8. The Curse of the Unlucky Mummy. Every great legend has its ghost story, its campfire tale. And Titanic's is one of the greatest ever told. And I want to be clear again. This story is pure, wonderful, 100% fiction. But we include it because its endurance is part of the Titanic story. The legend says a cursed Egyptian artifact, the unlucky mummy, was in the cargo hold. The most elaborate version claims the crew was so terrified they strapped it to the bridge right behind Captain Smith. It's a fantastic story, and it is completely untrue. The British Museum has meticulous records. The artifact in question never left London. So
why the story?
Because of W.T. Stead, a famous journalist and victim. Stead was a spiritualist who loved this ghost story. In fact, he had told the story of the unlucky mummy at a dinner party just nights before the voyage. When the ship sank, and Stead with it, the sensationalist press simply connected the dots. The mummy's curse is pure fiction, but it teaches us something vital about ourselves. We crave narrative. We would almost rather believe in an ancient, powerful curse than accept the simple, banal, and terrifying truth of human incompetence. This is included for its cultural and historical storytelling value. The irony, though, the unbelievable, chilling irony, is that there was a prophecy, a real one, written in ink 14 years earlier, and its accuracy, I have no explanation for. Mystery number 9. The Prophecy of the Titan. I physically found this. It wasn't on the internet. I was in a dusty, second-hand bookshop in Boston, in the maritime history section. I found this slim, forgotten novella. The pages were yellow and brittle. Its eerie accuracy kept me awake that night. The book was written in 1898. I want you to let that date sink in. 14 years before the Titanic was even finished. The author was an American writer, Morgan Robertson. The book was titled Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. You heard me correctly. The Titan. I sat in that shop and I read it, and the chill, it was real this time. Robertson's book is about the largest ship ever built, a marvel of technology, a ship everyone declared unsinkable. In the novel, this ship, the Titan, sets out on its maiden voyage on a cold April night in the North Atlantic. It is racing, going too fast, and it strikes an iceberg. Because the ship was deemed unsinkable, it did not carry enough lifeboats, and the Titan sinks. The parallels are not just close, they are microscopic. The name, Titan and Titanic. The size, Robertson's Titan was 800 feet long, the Titanic was 882 feet. The speed, both were traveling over 20 knots. The flaw, not enough lifeboats. When the Titanic sank, they called Robertson a prophet, but his explanation is, to me, more terrifying than any magic. He was not a psychic. He was an expert. He was a former seaman. He just extrapolated. He saw the arms race of the shipping companies, building ships bigger and bigger. He saw them using old maritime laws that said you only needed lifeboats based on tonnage, not people. He knew about the ice fields in April. He didn't predict the disaster. He calculated it. He saw that it was, statistically, inevitable. The wreck of the Titan is not a prophecy. It is a warning that was ignored. The philosophy is a stark one. The writing is always on the wall. We are never short of prophets. We are only short of listeners. And that's a lesson that resonates with me every time I see a warning sign ignored. If you find this story or any of these mysteries resonate with you, please consider sharing this episode. Perhaps it can help one of us start to listen. Mystery number 10, the vanishing of the bodies. This final mystery is the most sensitive, and we will discuss it with the respect and the scientific facts that it deserves. It's not about how it sank, but about what happened after. The numbers are stark. over 1,500 people died. The rescue ships, in the days that followed, recovered 334 bodies from the surface. The question, the cold final question is, where are the other 1,200?
For 73 years, the assumption was that the ship was a sealed tomb, that the grand staircase and dining rooms were filled with the remains of the victims. But when Robert Ballard's cameras, and later Cameron's, pierced that 2.5-mile deep darkness, they found no skeletons, no human remains, nothing. What happened to them?
The answer is not a mystery. It is science. A cold, impersonal science. This is based on the scientific findings from Dr. Robert Ballard's 1985 expedition and subsequent deep-sea analysis. The Titanic rests at a depth of 12,500 feet. At that depth, the pressure is immense. But more importantly, the ship lies below something called the carbonate compensation depth, or CCD. It's a chemical line in the ocean. Below this line, the water is so cold and under such pressure that it becomes slightly acidic. It becomes corrosive to calcium carbonate, the very material that makes up bone.
The soft tissues would have been consumed by deep-sea organisms within weeks. And then, the ocean itself, slowly, patiently, over the decades, dissolved them. They are gone, returned to the elements. The ocean erased them. The only thing left, and this is the image that will haunt me forever, is the shoes. The leather, tanned with chemicals, is indigestible. It survives. And so, on the ocean floor, the explorers found pairs of shoes lying empty on the mud, a worker's boot, a woman's high-heeled shoe, pairs of shoes marking where passengers rested. There are no bodies on the Titanic. The deep ocean has reclaimed them. The final philosophy is the most humbling. The universe does not care about our status. The deep sea, it is the ultimate equalizer. It dissolved the bones of John Jacob Astor IV, the richest man on board, just as quickly as it dissolved the bones of the poorest stoker. All that arrogance, all that wealth, all that class distinction, it simply vanished. The conclusion, the echo in the deep. So, where does this journey leave us? What is the hidden truth of the Titanic? I think it is that there isn't one truth. The Titanic did not sink because of one thing. It sank because of everything, all at once. It was a perfect, terrible storm of human failure. It was the fire they hid. It was the speed of their hubris. It was the silence of apathy from a ship that watched. It was a warning in a novel that no one read. It was a mirage in the sky that deceived their eyes. More than any other event, the Titanic is not just a story. It is a mirror. It is an eternal reminder that the moment we, as people, as societies, the moment we believe we are unsinkable, that is the exact moment we are steaming, full speed, directly at our own iceberg. That is the exact moment we are steaming, full speed, directly at our own iceberg. My name is Anna, and this has been The Hidden Truth. Thank you for joining me in the deep.
If this journey meant something to you, please consider subscribing and perhaps share it with someone else who appreciates these hidden stories.
I'd truly like to know, which of these 10 mysteries stays with you the most? Let me know in the comments. Until next time, sleep well and keep questioning.